Welcome to Empowerment in Illness. I'm Gwen, and I'm glad you're here. For many of us, the workplace isn't just stressful, it's dangerous. We push through pain, hide symptoms, and sacrifice rest because we're scared of losing our paycheck, our health insurance, or even our identity. Some of us are bullied by bosses, denied accommodations, or threatened with being outed about our diagnosis. Others actually develop their chronic illness because of the work we did, exposed to chemicals, worn down by unsafe environments, or broken by years of non-stop stress. And we're left asking, do I stay and suffer, or do I walk away and risk everything? I've heard from warriors who endured hostile workplaces, toxic managers, and jobs that made their illness worse every single day. They stayed because they were afraid of losing insurance, afraid of being denied disability, afraid of starting over. But staying too long cost them more than money. It cost them their health, their peace, and their sense of dignity. This episode is here to help you see the truth more clearly. We'll talk about the red flags you can't ignore, the rights you already have under laws like the ADA and FMLA, and the protections available if your job caused or worsened your illness. We'll also talk about disability benefits, workers' comp, unemployment, and how to leave with dignity and strategy instead of fear. We're breaking this into 13 parts. Red flags that signal it may be time to walk away. Your legal protection, ADA, FMLA, retaliation laws, and state leave programs. The toll of staying too long. When the workplace caused your illness. Workers' compensation, disability benefits, SSDI, SSI, and private plans. Unemployment benefits, short-term and long-term disability through employers. Health insurance continuous options like COBRA. Union support and formal complaints. Emotional versus strategic decision making. The grief of walking away. How to leave on your terms with peace, dignity, and protection. Because sometimes the bravest things you can do is not fight to stay. It's giving yourself permission to leave. We have a lot to unpack today, so let's get into it. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between a tough season at work and a truly toxic environment. But when you're living with a chronic illness, the stakes are higher because every stressor, every flare, every sleepless night gets amplified by how your body reacts. Here are some red flags that should not be ignored. Constant denial of accommodations. If you've asked for something simple like a flexible schedule, the ability to work from home on flare days, extra breaks, or ergonomics equipment, and you're met with silence, excuses, or outright refusal, that's not just policy. That's a sign of a workplace unwilling to comply with the ADA. Retaliation or threats after you ask for help. If every time you request support, you're suddenly written up, reassigned, or threatened with job loss, that's not just a coincidence. That's retaliation, and retaliation is illegal. Being outed or shamed for your diagnosis. If your manager or coworker share your private health information without your consent or weaponize it to embarrass you, that's harassment. You have the right to privacy, and your diagnosis should never be gossip material. Forced to choose between treatment and attendance. When you're told to skip infusions, specialist appointments, or recovery days, or else risk disciplinary action, that's not just cruel. It's a violation of your rights under laws like FMLA and in many states, paid family and medical leave. Repeated write-ups tied to your illness. If your absences, medical emergencies, or flare days keep being used against you, despite documentation, that's not performance management, that's discrimination. These red flags matter because they tell you this: the problem isn't you, it's the system you're working in. And once you recognize the red flags, You can stop internalizing the blame and start protecting yourself. If you've been brushing off these red flags, ask yourself, am I holding on to this job? Or is this job holding on to me in a way that's breaking me down? A lot of us don't know our rights at work. And when you don't know them, employers can take advantage of you, whether it's by denying accommodations, threatening your job, or making you feel like you're asking for too much. But let's make this crystal clear. You have protections under the law. The ADA, Americans with Disability Act, protects people with chronic illnesses if the condition substantially limits one or more major life activity. That includes things like walking, concentrating, working, or even sleeping. Under the ADA, you have the right to request reasonable accommodations, like a flexible schedule, working from home, extra breaks, a different chair, or a shift in job duties. But here's the catch. You have to ask. Your employer is not required to offer unless you make a formal request, usually in writing, supported by documentation from your doctor. Once you do, your employer is required to sit down with you in what's called the interactive process, a conversation to figure out what accommodations make sense. They can only deny your request if it causes undue hardship for the company, and they have to prove it. FMLA, Family and Medical Leave Acts, give eligible employees up to 12 weeks of job-protected leave per year for serious health conditions. That means you can't be fired for needing extended time off for illness or treatment. What most people don't know is that you don't have to take those 12 weeks all at once. Intermittent FMLA lets you take leave in smaller chunks, a few hours for an infusion, a day for a flare, or even recurring half days for appointments. To qualify, you must have worked at your job for at least 12 months, logged 1,250 hours in the past year, and your employer must have 50 or more employees within 75 miles. It's unpaid leave, but your job is protected and your health coverage continues. Some states go beyond federal law. States like California, New York, Washington, New Jersey, and Massachusetts offer paid family and medical leave (PFML) programs that provide partial wage replacement while you're out. That means you don't just keep your job, you still get a paycheck during your recovery. These programs vary, so it's important to check your state's Department of Labor website for eligibility. If your employer threatens, punishes, or demotes you for requesting accommodations or taking protected leave, that's retaliation. And retaliation is against the law. You can file a complaint with the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or your state labor board if this happens to you. Do you know your rights at work? And if not, what's stopping you from learning them now before you need them in a crisis? Sometimes we stay because we feel like we have no choice. We push through pain, swallow mistreatment, and keep telling ourselves, I just need this job. But the truth is, staying too long in a toxic or unsafe workplace can cost you far more than your paycheck. Chronic illness and stress are a dangerous mix. Staying in a hostile work environment can trigger more flares, weaken your immune system, and make your condition harder to manage. I've heard from warriors who ended up in the ER, not because of their illness alone, but because of the constant stress their job created. And the longer you stay, the more your body pays the price. When every day feels like a fight for dignity, it chips away at your self-worth. You start doubting yourself, questioning whether you're too much or not enough. It's not just burnout, it's trauma. Workplace trauma is real, and it can leave scars that last long after you've walked away. Ironically, staying in a toxic job doesn't always mean financial stability. Missed days, reduced hours, or being denied promotions because of your illness all add up. medical bills grow while your income shrinks. Some warriors end up with more debt because they stayed, not because they left. I recently spoke with a woman who has lupus and works for a well-known company. I mentioned this to you in the last episode. After she informed her boss of her diagnosis, she began bullying her, denying her request for time off, threatening to out her to coworkers, and making her workplace unbearable. That toxic environment wore her down emotionally. That environment will make her sicker. Her flares will increase. Her energy will plummet and her health will decline because of the constant stress. That's the cost of staying too long, and it's a price no one should have to pay. This is the trap. You think staying is the safe choice, but it's not always safe. Sometimes staying too long costs more: your health, your peace, and your financial future. Ask yourself, am I staying in this job because it's truly serving me, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I leave? And what has the real cost been so far? Sometimes we don't just bring our illness into the workplace. Sometimes the workplace creates the illness. There are warriors who develop autoimmune diseases, lung conditions, or cancers because of exposure to chemicals, mold, or unsafe environments at work. These aren't rare stories. They're just rarely talked about. Factories, warehouses, offices with poor ventilation, even healthcare settings can expose workers to risk that build up over time. Chronic pain and musculoskeletal conditions are often the direct result of years of repetitive movement, heavy lifting, or poor ergonomics on the job, carpal tunnel, back injuries, joint deterioration. These are workplace injuries that can spiral into chronic conditions if ignored or dismissed. Even without chemical exposure or physical strain, some workplaces literally make people sick through chronic stress, long hours, lack of rest, bullying, or constant fear of job loss can push the body into survival mode. Over time, that stress can trigger or worsen autoimmune conditions, heart disease, or mental health disorders. If your illness is directly connected to your job, you may be entitled to workers' compensation, a program that provides medical benefits and wage replacement for job-related injuries or illnesses. The problem is, most people don't file because they don't know they can, or they think it's too late. Many states allow claims for conditions that develop gradually over time, not just sudden accidents. This is why documenting everything matters. If your symptoms started or worsened at work, make a note of it. Keep record of exposure, unsafe conditions, or repeated tasks that cause your injuries. Talk to your doctor about the link between your work and your illness, because if your workplace caused your condition, they shouldn't get away with leaving you to carry the full cost. Ask yourself, did my job make me sicker? And if it did, have I taken steps to protect myself legally and financially? If your illness or injury is connected to your job, workers' compensation might be a lifeline you didn't know you had. It's a state-run system that provides wage replacement and medical benefits if your job caused or worsened your condition. Workers' comp isn't just for sudden accidents like slipping on the job or breaking a bone. It can also cover chronic injuries from repetitive strain like carpal tunnel or back injuries, illnesses caused by chemical exposure or unsafe environments, conditions that got worse because of your job's demand or hazards. What it covers: medical care related to your work injury or illness, partial wage replacement if you can't work while recovering, permanent disability benefits if you can't return to the same type of work, vocational rehab to help you retrain for a different job if needed. Workers' comp has strict rules and timelines. Many states require you to notify your employer quickly, sometimes within days or weeks of realizing your illness is work-related. And employers and their insurance companies often fight these claims, arguing your illness is not their fault. That's why documentation matters. What should you do? Report your condition to your employer as soon as you suspect it's work-related. See a doctor and tell them exactly what exposure or work conditions may have caused or worsened your illness. Keep copies of all forms, medical notes, and communication with your employer. If your claim is denied, consider speaking with the workers' compensation attorney. Many work on contingency, meaning they don't get paid unless you win. Workers' comp is not a favor from your employer. It's an insurance system your employer is legally required to participate in. If your job made you sick, you deserve those benefits. Period. Have you ever brushed off your illness as just bad luck when it might actually have been caused or worsened by your workplace? What would change if you saw it as something you could fight for, not just something you have to live with? If your illness or injury is connected to your job, workers' compensation may be your first line of protection. But for many warriors, workers' compensation isn't enough or it runs out. That's where disability benefits come in. If your condition keeps you from working long term, you may qualify for Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, or Supplemental Security Income, SSI. SSDI is for people who have worked and paid into Social Security but can no longer work full-time because of a medical condition. SSI is for people with limited income and resources, regardless of their work history. Both require medical proof that your condition prevents you from maintaining what Social Security calls substantial gainful activity. And yes, it's a long, frustrating process, but it's possible to win, especially with strong medical documentation. Some employers offer short-term or long-term disability insurance as part of their benefits package. These can kick in much faster than SSDI, SSI, and cover parts of your income while you're out. Before walking away from a job, always check if these are available. You might be leaving money on the table. How they interact? Here's where it gets tricky. You can sometimes receive workers' compensation and SSDI at the same time, but your SSDI benefits may be reduced so the total doesn't exceed a certain percentage of your past income. If you settle a workers' comp claim, how it's written can affect your eligibility for Social Security benefits. This is why consulting a disability or workers' comp lawyer can make a huge difference. They can help structure your case so you don't lose out. Workers' comp helps when your job caused the illness. SSDI, SSI help when your illness, work-related or not, keeps you from working. Private disability plans can bridge the gap. And yes, in some cases, you can use all three systems strategically. Have you ever told yourself, I'll just push through, instead of filing for benefits you've already earned? What would it feel like to stop surviving and start using the protections that exist for you? Here's something a lot of people don't realize. In certain situations, you can quit your job and still qualify for unemployment benefits. Unemployment isn't only for people who get laid off. In many states, if you leave a job because of unsafe working conditions, medical reasons tied to your health, discrimination or harassment, employer retaliation, you may still be eligible for benefits. It comes down to showing that you had good cause for leaving, and protecting your health, safety, and dignity is good cause. Unemployment benefits are temporary financial support, usually a percentage of your prior income, for people who are actively seeking work. Even if you're planning to file for disability, unemployment can bridge the gap between leaving your job and getting approved for longer-term benefits. The rules vary by state, so you need to check your state's unemployment office. You'll likely have to prove your case. Documenting unsafe conditions, denied accommodations, or harassment makes a big difference. Some states require you to be able and available to work, which can complicate things for chronic illness warriors. But if you're seeking part-time, remote, or less physically demanding work, you may still qualify. Don't assume you're not eligible. Even if HR or your boss tries to tell you otherwise, the state makes the final decision, not your employer. File the claim. Let the state review your case. The worst they can say is no, but the best case could be weeks of financial relief. Quitting doesn't always mean losing everything. If you left because your job was making you sick, unsafe, or strip you of your rights, unemployment benefits may still be on the table. If you knew you wouldn't be left without nothing, would you feel freer to leave a toxic job? And is fear of losing income the only thing keeping you stuck? Before you walk away from a job, take a closer look at what's already available to you. Many employers offer short-term disability and long-term disability insurance as part of their benefits package. These programs can provide income protection when your illness prevents you from working, and they're often much faster to access than government programs like SSDI. Short-term disability typically covers a few weeks up to 6 months, replaces a percentage of your paycheck, usually 50 to 70%, can cover surgeries, hospitalization, flare recoveries, or time when your condition keeps you out temporarily. Long-term disability kicks in after short-term disability runs out, or if your illness prevents you from returning to work for an extended period. Can last for years, sometimes until retirement age depending on the policy. Still replaces only a portion of your income, but it provides stability while you decide next step. The catch? You usually need to apply before you resign, because eligibility is tied to being an active employee. Documentation from your doctor is required. Be clear and specific about your limitations. Some policies overlap with SSDI. If you're approved for SSDI, your LTD, long-term disability, benefits may be reduced, but they can work together to protect your income. Too many warriors quit in desperation, not knowing they had months or even years of income protection available. These benefits can give you breathing room, time to heal, plan, and transition without financial freefall. Check your benefits handbook or talk to HR before you walk away. Disability insurance you've already earned could be the bridge you need. If you had the safety net of disability benefits, would your decision to stay or leave feel less terrifying? One of the scariest parts of walking away from a job is losing health insurance. For people with chronic illness, that fear alone can feel paralyzing. But here's the truth, you have options. COBRA, Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. COBRA allows you to keep your employer-sponsored health insurance after leaving your job, usually after 18 months, sometimes longer. The catch? You pay the full premium, your part and the employer's part, which can be very expensive. But it buys you continuity. Your doctors, medications, and treatments stay covered while you transition. State exchanges, ACA Marketplace. Under the Affordable Care Act, you can apply for insurance through your state's exchange. Losing job-based coverage qualifies you for a special enrollment period, so you don't have to wait for open enrollment. Depending on your income, you may qualify for subsidies that make these plans much cheaper than COBRA. Medicaid expansion. In many states, if your income drops after losing your job, you may qualify for Medicaid. Medicaid often covers services private insurance won't, though providers' access can be limited depending on your state. Don't let coverage lapse. You usually have 60 days after losing your job-based insurance to enroll in COBRA or a marketplace plan. Gaps in coverage can complicate access to medication or lead to denied claims. Health insurance is not a reason to stay in a toxic job. You may pay more at first, but your health is priceless, and there are systems in place to keep you covered. Ask yourself, am I holding on to a job that's hurting me just because of insurance? What would change if I explored all options? When you're dealing with discrimination, harassment, or retaliation at work, it's easy to feel like you have no power. But you're not powerless. You have options. And sometimes the strongest move you can make is to bring in backup. If you're part of a union, you have an advocate built into your workplace. Unions can step in when your manager denies accommodation, represent you in disciplinary meetings, file grievances on your behalf, protect you from retaliation when you speak up. Too many people suffer in silence, not realizing their union is there to fight for them. If you're unionized, don't wait until it's too late. Reach out early before problems escalate. HR exists to protect the company first, but that doesn't mean they're useless. Filing a formal complaint through HR creates a paper trail, something you'll need if your case goes to EEOC, workers' comp, or court. Even if HR doesn't fix the problem, your documentation becomes proof of what you endured. If you're facing discrimination based on disability, the EEOC is where you can take your case. They investigate claims of ADA violations, retaliation, and harassment. Filing an EEOC complaint can feel intimidating, but it's often the step that forces companies to take accountability. Whether it's with your union, HR, or the EEOC, always document dates and times of incidents, what was said or done, who was present, emails, texts, or write-ups that back your story. The more records you have, the harder it is for an employer to gaslight you. Silence protects the abuser, not the worker. Using your union, HR, or the EEOC doesn't make you difficult, it makes you strategic. Have you been suffering in silence at work? What would it look like to stop carrying the fight alone and let the system back you up? When you're exhausted, burned out, and beaten down by a toxic job, the temptation to just walk out is real. I get it. You want the pain to stop. You want the stress to end. And in that moment, quitting feels like the only way to breathe again. But here's the truth. Quitting in the heat of the moment can cost you protections, benefits, and income you're entitled to. And you've already given enough. You shouldn't have to give up more. Emotional decisions look like walking out without notice, resigning without filing for FMLA or disability, leaving without documenting harassment or denied accommodations, quitting before checking unemployment eligibility or short, long-term disability coverage. Strategic decisions look like documenting every conversation, denial, and active retaliation, filing for accommodations or intermittent FMLA, even if you know you may leave, reviewing your benefits package for hidden protections, short-term disability, long-term disability insurance, talking with HR, your union, or the EEOC before submitting a resignation letter, making a plan for insurance, income, and medical care before you walk away. One choice gives your employer all the power. The other choice protects your health, your money, and your dignity. This isn't about telling you to stay longer in a toxic place. It's about making sure that when you leave on your terms with the benefits and protections you've earned. Leaving doesn't mean giving up, but leaving without a plan can mean giving away the safety net that were put in place to protect you. Don't let a bad employer win twice. Ask yourself, if I walked out tomorrow, would I be leaving empty-handed or walking away with my rights intact? Leaving a job isn't just about paychecks and benefits. It's about identity. It's about the community you built, the routine you followed, and the pride you felt when you could say, "This is what I do." When chronic illness forces you to walk away, it can feel like more than a resignation. It can feel like grief. For many of us, work isn't just what we do, it's who we are. Leaving can stir up questions like, who am I without this job? What value do I have if I can't work the way I used to? Those thoughts are heavy, and they're normal. Work often gives us a circle of people to see and connect with every day. Walking away can mean losing friendships, inside jokes, and a sense of belonging, even if the environment was toxic. That sudden isolation can feel like another layer of punishment. No matter how stressful a job was, it often came with the paycheck and health insurance. Leaving can trigger fears about survival, fear about bills, fear about the unknown. That fear is real and it needs space to be acknowledged. Too often, warriors feel pressured to just move on, but grief doesn't work like that. You're allowed to feel sad, angry, or even betrayed. You're allowed to mourn what you lost, even if leaving was the right choice. Walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. Grief is part of the healing process, not a sign that you made the wrong decision. You're not grieving because you failed. You are grieving because you loved, invested, and gave your all, and now you're stepping into something new. That grief is proof of your strength, not the absence of it. Ask yourself, am I giving myself permission to grieve the job I left, or am I judging myself for feeling sad? What would healing look like if I allowed both? Walking away doesn't mean losing. Walking away can be the most powerful, intentional act of self-advocacy you ever make, if you do it on your own terms. Here's how to leave strategically, not desperately. Step 1. Gather documentation. Keep copies of performance reviews, HR emails, denied accommodation requests, and any retaliation you've faced. If you ever need to apply for unemployment, disability, or file a legal complaint, your paper trail will back you up. Step 2. Secure your benefits. Check your employer benefits package before resigning. Do you have short-term or long-term disability insurance? Can you use FMLA or intermittent leave to protect your job for a little longer? Is COBRA available for your health insurance? Don't walk away until you know what you're entitled to. Step 3. Line up financial resources. File for unemployment if eligible. Explore state leave programs, Medicaid, or ACA marketplace insurance. Look into workers' comp or Social Security disability if your illness prevents you from continuing work long term. Leaving is easier when you've built a safety net. Write a clear resignation letter. Keep it short, professional, and factual. You don't owe them your medical details. A simple, I am resigning, effective, and a date. Thank you for your opportunity is enough. Leave with your dignity intact. Step 5. Exit with peace. Know that leaving isn't giving up, it's choosing yourself. You don't need to burn bridges or explain your worth. Walking away doesn't mean weakness. It means you value your health, your peace, and your future more than a paycheck from a place that couldn't respect you. Quitting is not failure. Quitting without a plan leaves you vulnerable. But quitting with documentation, benefits secured, and your dignity intact, that's not quitting, that's winning. If you had a clear plan in place, what would walking away from a toxic job look like? Would it feel like loss, or would it feel like freedom? Before we leave, I would like to close with a special portion of the show I call Healing Heartbeats. This is where we allow ourselves to wallow in sorrow. Give yourself 3 minutes to laugh, cry, scream, cuss, or just sit in silence. Whatever you need to do to feel it, do it. Let the depression in for only 3 minutes. Once you've reached 3 minutes, compartmentalize it and get back to living. This is a rinse and repeat behavior. You cannot let depression take over, because when it does, it will not let go. When we hear about the passing of someone, they have the day they were born and the day they pass away. There's a dash in the middle. It's not a long line, but a short dash. That dash represents your life. Go live in spite of having a chronic illness. Don't let your condition stop you. Warriors, today we've talked about what happens when work takes more than it gives. We've walked through the red flags, your legal protections, the toll of staying too long, and what it means when the job itself caused your illness. We've explored workers' compensation, disability benefits, unemployment, short and long-term employers' disability, and even how to keep your health insurance. We've talked about unions, HR, the EEOC, and why documentation is your armor. We named the grief of leaving, and we built a step-by-step strategy so that if you walk away with your dignity and your safety nets intact. Here's what I want you to remember. Leaving is not losing. Leaving is choosing. Choosing your health, your peace, and your future. You've given enough to employers who don't see your worth. Don't give them your health too. And if you're not ready yet, that's okay. File your paperwork. Build your plan. Take one small step toward protecting yourself today. The point is not to rush. The point is to prepare. So when you do say enough is enough, you can walk away on your own terms. You're not broken. You're not disposable. You are powerful. And you are worthy of a life that doesn't destroy you for a paycheck. Remember, you have the strength, the heart, and the support to continue your journey. Be safe.